The second night, the landline didn't ring. I kept a chair propped under my bedroom doorknob anyway. Out in the living room, the picture window felt like a giant watching eye. I closed the blinds as soon as the sun slid down. At 11:30, the heat coughed a little and went quiet. The house settled into a hum so thin you could taste it. At 12:03, someone knocked on the front door. One knock, then two, then a pause, then three. Polite. Not frantic, like a neighbor asking to borrow sugar. I didn't move. There was no peephole, and the windows flanked the door were frosted. I could see the outline of the porch railing and the blur of the empty yard. "Hello?" A voice called through the door, muffled and close. A man, maybe 40, with the strained politeness of someone lost. I stood in the hallway and didn't breathe. Rule 4, if someone knocks after midnight, don't answer. "Sorry to bother you," the voice said. "Truck trouble." A folded, papery sound like a smile threaded through the words. "Just need to use a phone." I thought of the snapped cord from the landline in my kitchen and felt a wave of pure, childish relief I didn't have to say no. "I can see a light," he said, still gentle. "I know you're awake." Something about that turned the temperature in my body cold. I backed up 3 steps and the floor groaned. The man went quiet. Then he laughed a little, as if I'd told him a joke. He tapped the glass with the soft wick of a fingernail and said, "Lighter now. It's okay. I'll come back." I stayed in the hallway for an hour. The knock never came again. Somewhere after 1, I heard something small skitter across the porch. When I finally dared to peek through the blinds into the yard, the barn floodlight popped on all by itself, like it had been waiting for my eyes. The seam between the doors was wider than the night before. I couldn't explain how I knew it, but I had the sick certainty that if I went down there and dragged the doors shut, whatever was inside would put its hand on mine. Morning felt like a reprieve. I made the mistake of telling myself I was overreacting. The sun thinned the house's corners and made the hallways ordinary. I checked the porch. No footprints. The steps were dry and clean. I found a note slid under the front mat, or what I thought was a note, until I unfolded it and realized it was a page ripped from a hardware store circular. The ripped edge was wet, like someone had held it in their mouth to soften it. On the white margin, someone had written in pencil, "It's colder than you think." I put it in the trash and took it back out and put it in the trash again. Cricket hissed at the empty doorway and ran under the bed. By the 3rd night, I'd fallen into a survival rhythm. Lights off early, blinds closed, bedroom chair against the knob, phone under the pillow, a glass of water within reach, so I had no reason to leave the room. The house obliged by being almost quiet. The heat ticked once, then settled into a steady sigh. The fridge hummed. Somewhere in the wall by the mudroom, a pipe pinged. At 12:17, the landline rang again. When I say the sound went through me, I mean it felt like it was inside my chest. I could tell it was the landline and not my cell from the tone alone. It rang once, and in that one ring I ran through my options. Ignore it and hope it stopped, go rip more cord out of the wall, or answer it and say I had the wrong number. Anything. It rang twice. Rule 5. If the landline rings more than once, unplug it. I grabbed the flashlight and crept down the hall. The phone lay face down where I'd left it, the cracked cord like a dead snake. I lifted the base. The ringing didn't come from the speaker. It came from inside the wall. I put my palm against the drywall beside the jack and felt a faint vibration, as if behind the plaster a second phone was ringing on a line no one had used in years. Ring 3. Cricket growled low in her throat. Ring 4. The barn floodlight blinked against the blinds. After ring 5, silence. For maybe 10 seconds, nothing moved. Then something across the kitchen, something small and precise, made 3 soft clicking sounds. Not footsteps, not pipes. The sound of a switch toggled up. I turned the flashlight toward it, too late to see anything but the dark rectangle of the mudroom doorway. The chair under my bedroom doorknob scraped, slow and light, like someone on the other side was testing it with 2 fingers. I held my breath until my vision prickled. The scrape didn't come again. A long minute passed. Outside, the barn floodlight cut off. In the living room, the heat exhaled hard enough to make the vents shiver. I stood there, counting in my head until the back of my throat went dry. Finally, I walked backward to my room and sat on the bed and waited for morning to find me. I would have left that minute if not for Cricket. I told myself I couldn't just abandon a living thing, so I made it through one more day, and when dusk came, I told myself it was the last. One more night, and I'd text the owner that I was sick and he needed to find someone else. I fed the cat and stood at the corkboard like a guard. The cameras flickered to black and white. I stared at the front yard feed until the numbers in the corner blurred. At 11:32, the porch cam caught movement. A shape stepped into frame from the far left. Thin, hunched a little, not tall. It moved like someone who'd learned to walk by watching other people, the joints a fraction off. It paused at the bottom step, then took one deliberate step upward and stopped, like it was counting. The heat clicked in the duct, and the porch figure's head ticked toward the sound, a too-fast animal motion. I felt my stomach flip over itself. It went up one more step and stopped again. I didn't breathe. I didn't run. I watched a small, pale hand appear on the edge of the monitor as the figure reached up and put two fingertips on the camera lens. The image smeared. The feed froze. The time in the corner erased itself to all zeros. Something on the living room side of the front door breathed out, like warm air against glass. I saw it without seeing it, a small fog circle blooming on the frosted panel and then vanishing. I took Cricket, my keys, and my wallet and walked to the bedroom window. The chair pressed under the knob looked ridiculous now, like a child's fort against a storm. I slid the window up and cold air rolled in. Outside, the yard was textureless and dark. The barn floodlight blew on, revealing nothing but torn frost raked into strange fingertip crescents in the mud. I slipped out and dropped into the brittle grass. On the way to my car, something small clinked under my shoe. I crouched and picked up a plastic tab from a grocery bread bag, the kind that snaps on and off. Someone had bent it into a shape like a little jaw. On it, in pencil thin as a hair, someone had written a word I could barely read. Knock. I drove to the gas station off the highway with every light on in the car. I paid for a coffee I didn't drink and stood in the bright aisle under the fan of security monitors because it felt safe to be watched by anything else. When I finally talked myself into going back, it was because the idea of leaving Cricket there alone made something in my chest ache. The house looked dead from the road. Every window was black. The porch was empty. I pulled up to the steps, left the engine running, and jogged inside with my keys in one fist like they could be a weapon. The living room lights wouldn't come on. The kitchen light wouldn't either. I got to my phone and turned on the flashlight and went to the bedroom, where Cricket wasn't under the bed because Cricket was sitting on the bed itself, tail straight up, ears forward, staring at the chair I'd left under the knob. The chair was not where I'd left it. It stood neatly beside the dresser, like someone had put it back where it belonged. The bedroom door hung open a hand's width. The blue painter's tape from the upstairs bathroom hung from the knob in a soft loop like a ribbon. Somewhere inside the house, the landline rang once. I took the cat and I left. I broke my promise to myself about staying the fourth night. I sent the owner a text from the gas station that said I was sorry and that something weird was going on with the phone lines and the porch camera and the heat, and that he should probably call someone. He didn't respond. He never did. A week later, an envelope showed up at my apartment with no return address. Inside was $600 cash and a single Polaroid. The picture was of the living room at night, the picture window a black mirror. In it, you could see the couch, the TV, the shape of someone holding a camera at chest height because the flash made a white flare on the glass. The someone was me. I know because I was wearing the green hoodie I had on the first night. In the reflection beside me, in the square of the picture window, hands rested on the outside of the glass. Small hands, only the finger pads visible, the nails dark with dirt, no face. Just hands and the suggestion of breath fogging a shape I refused to make out while I stood in that room and tried not to be afraid of a phone. There was no note in the envelope. I checked, then checked again. I almost missed the pencil scratch on the inside flap because it was so faint it looked like a crease. 4 words, careful and light. Thank you for answering. I moved 2 months later to a building with no yard, no woods, no barn, and windows that look out at a brick wall and nothing else. I haven't heard a landline ring since. Sometimes, late, when the radiator ticks and the neighbor's TV laughs at something I can't see, I wake up with the feeling that something is counting from the bottom step of a staircase that isn't in my apartment. On nights like that, I put my hand on the wall and listen. Nothing knocks. Not yet. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos.